This woman is extraordinarily woke, as everyone is in Hollywood, but she's woke in a way that's quite deranged.
Other movie companies are going to look at her and they're going to say box office poison. And a lot of this is due to her behavior leading up to the film's release.
Minecraft in the United States in one weekend made more money than Snow White has made globally after 3 weekends.
Right from the beginning, there was a growing sense of unease about a notable performer who tackled a legendary fairy tale, instantly sparking discussion in various circles. This individual assumed a role known for enchantment, nostalgia, and childhood innocence. Yet her public comments and demeanor implied that she saw the original material as severely outdated. Rather than honoring the elements that had endeared the story to countless fans, she often dismissed its core themes as relics of a distant past.
If you are a business like Disney, you are leaning into what the movie Snow White meant to the people that were raised on it. People like me who watched Disney princess movies when the world was okay and it was acceptable for us to dream about being a princess as a woman and meeting a handsome prince. But oh no, these big bad feminists now are telling us that's ridiculous.
In interviews and social media posts, her frustration felt jarringly out of place for someone tasked with bringing warmth and charm to an iconic character. The role itself held considerable cultural and historical weight, springing from a milestone in animation and symbolizing youthful optimism and timeless romance. But the performer treated these treasured qualities as if they no longer deserved respect. Audiences anticipating admiration were greeted instead by a tone edging toward disdain, suggesting that she did not share their fondness for the classic fairy tale.
How dare you want to meet a handsome prince and be swept off of your feet and live happily ever after? No, you should want to be the prince. You should want to go out and fight the bad guys with a sword.
As reactions poured in, many noted that she consistently seemed annoyed whenever discussing the story's fundamentals. It was not an isolated remark. She appeared to view the beloved prince and the gentle heroine seeking love as simplistic or passé. Lifelong fans felt talked down to, wondering why a character treasured for her grace and goodness was being portrayed by someone seemingly determined to criticize what made the story so enduring. Some tried to excuse her attitude as a clumsy attempt at modernizing certain points, but skepticism only intensified with each new interview.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true.
Candace Owens, renowned for her outspoken critiques, wasted no time in calling out the performer's dismissive stance, labeling it both arrogant and short-sighted. Owens argued that accepting a cherished role only to denigrate the original narrative was counterproductive. In her view, stepping into such a beloved property ought to involve recognizing the legacy entrusted to you, not casting it aside.
And so it's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
Snow White is running for president.
I'm launching my campaign. I am.
Am I the only one that wishes it was 1937 because I'm just so sick of this?
With characteristic bluntness, she maintained that the lead's condescension was alienating fans long before the film could stand on its own. Before long, the performer's commentary began to undermine the project's public image. The studio had invested a hefty budget to bring this celebrated tale to life in live-action form, something that would ordinarily generate excitement across multiple generations. Yet the star's persistent negativity overshadowed any potential buzz.
Absolutely. She is just uniquely unlikable, but then it is actually a terrible film as well. So it's the double whammy.
Conversation gravitated toward her disapproval of the fairy tale's heart, leaving many to doubt whether this new version could capture even a fraction of the original's charm. Owens reiterated that revamping a classic does not require scorning its essence. A thoughtful balance can preserve the magic while refreshing dated elements.
Don't alienate half of the country when you're putting out a product meant to appeal to all. It's the Michael Jordan Republicans buy sneakers too.
Soon, a broader debate emerged over how best to approach beloved tales that may no longer fully align with modern values. Some argued that older stories reflect the eras in which they were created and deserve a degree of reverence, even when updated. However, the lead performer seemed to believe the entire foundation was hopelessly antiquated, implying it required radical changes to be worthwhile.
For every one of the 18 hours I am in the Snow White dress, I expect to get paid. If it's 18 hours, I want 18 hours of pay. I'm sure she got underpaid as a Disney lead actress.
To fans who cherished the original, the idea that its traditional themes were beyond redemption felt like a personal affront. As coverage continued, many questioned why someone apparently contemptuous of the fairy tale accepted the part at all. Observers, including Owens, raised doubts about the casting process and whether it was wise to entrust a pivotal role to a performer so eager to criticize the story's legacy.
People have real problems and no one gives a shit if she got paid for 17 instead of 18 on her multi-million-dollar salary, which is not calculated by the hour.
Interviews that should have drummed up anticipation instead fueled ongoing concern, reinforcing the impression that the new star viewed the classic's defining traits with little more than scorn. Inevitably, industry watchers began speculating that the movie might flop at the box office. Although a major studio release tied to such a recognizable property typically guarantees a sizable opening, the performer's growing reputation for disparaging the fairy tale had many potential viewers reconsidering.
So she just encapsulates everything that most of us cannot stand about modern-day feminism and the left in general, and Hollywood.
On social media, fans noted that the story's wholesome magic was being overshadowed by jaded commentary, sparking waves of dissatisfaction. Matters intensified when rumors suggested significant changes to supporting characters crucial to the original's identity. Devotees who had admired these figures since childhood found the prospect unsettling, worrying that the adaptation was stripping away beloved elements just to avoid any whiff of outdated storytelling. Owens seized on this development, contending that such frantic overhauls exposed weak leadership and a disregard for those who had cherished, or hoped to portray, these long-standing roles.
Her heroine cannot be in love or be saved by a man, the prince, that she's more focused on becoming the leader she was meant to be, as if women in modern-day America must make that choice.
In time, word spread that production had run into repeated delays, forced reshoots, and a barrage of negative press. Insiders whispered that the studio's top brass was scrambling to salvage what should have been a surefire crowd-pleaser. Yet every time the star shared her thoughts, she reignited doubts that the fairy tale's enchanted spirit could endure such stern critique. Owens warned that her commentary risked turning the film into something unrecognizable, sapping the loyalty of would-be viewers. Then the situation escalated further. The performer made politically charged remarks about a large slice of the potential audience. These statements traveled quickly online, raising questions about whether she was deliberately alienating those with differing views.
You cannot both be a leader as a female and fall in love and be rescued by a prince. Like, that's incongruous bullshit. That's only the left's version of what it means to be a strong woman or female empowerment.
For a supposedly family-oriented film, the backlash was intense. Some fans vowed to avoid any project headlined by a performer who came off as openly hostile. Boycott talk grew louder, and many wondered how the star could reconcile a family-friendly role with such polarizing commentary. Owens, characteristically frank, insisted this was a recipe for disaster. She asserted that a film meant to unite parents, children, and nostalgia seekers was now at risk of falling apart beneath the weight of its star's combative comments.
So, I mean, this woman has clicked every box, and just for cherry on top at the end, she gave an interview last week talking about how they were basically a bunch of white supremacists on the set of West Side Story.
Even if the performer had valid criticisms of the original, Owens argued there were far more diplomatic ways to express them, ways that would not alienate a loyal audience in the process. At length, speculation arose over whether the studio might replace the lead or indefinitely postpone the film. Some advocated downplaying her involvement in marketing, while others mused over the extreme cost of reshooting with a different actor. Owens held the studio responsible too, suggesting that by letting the star's harsh opinions shape the film's narrative, they had boxed themselves into a corner from which it was nearly impossible to recover.
It just takes a beloved movie and makes it much more boring and much less realistic. The movie is really, really bad.
Ultimately, the movie did open, and initial results were dismal. Critics and fans alike panned it, and ticket sales fell drastically short of expectations. Viewers who did attend mentioned a palpable disconnect between the production's visual flair and its emotional emptiness. The lead's well-documented contempt for much of the original material seemed to bleed into her performance, stripping away the warmth that defined the fairy tale. Missing characters and other significant alterations only reinforced the feeling that the adaptation had veered too far from what made the story a classic in the first place. As postmortems rolled in, many singled out the lead's unbridled commentary as the film's downfall. Owens stressed that the performer's insistence on ridiculing the fairy tale's cornerstones undercut the entire endeavor. Instead of a tasteful update, fans got a contentious spectacle about progress, tradition, and personal grievances.
But I was basically the only person in the theater. Very few people wanted to see this. Even the little kids who like Disney movies, even they don't seem to be turning up in droves for the movie.
By continually framing the original as laughably outdated, the star drove away viewers, people who might otherwise have embraced a gentle reworking. In the aftermath of the film's weak box office showing, most observers agreed the adaptation had lost its core appeal long before premiering. Some felt the script itself caved to too many outside pressures, diluting its heart in the process. Yet the consensus remained that the most damaging factor was the star's relentless negativity, which overshadowed every chance to create goodwill or spark excitement. Owens argued that updating a timeless tale can be done successfully, but only by preserving the spark that made it beloved in the first place.
The movie is really, really bad.
Discarding the fairy tale's radiant heart and dismissing its enduring characters amounted to an enormous miscalculation. Even those open to modern perspectives were put off by the vibe of scorn that permeated interviews. A larger conversation soon took shape. Could classic stories be reimagined responsibly without alienating existing fans? The performer's reputation took a severe hit, as rumors circulated that casting directors were wary of working with someone who clashed so publicly with the very audience a family project needs to attract.
In every way that the movie differed from the beloved 1937 original, it was worse.
In time, public focus shifted to other controversies, but this debacle lingered as a cautionary tale about letting condescension replace courtesy toward a culturally significant piece of storytelling. Owens, never one to mince words, concluded that viewers do not want to be lectured on why the stories they treasure are obsolete. They crave the uplifting and magical qualities that made those tales iconic for so many decades. The prevailing lesson was that, no matter how large the budget, once the core fanbase senses that the lead performer disdains what they hold dear, the film's destiny is all but sealed.
And so this bizarre fixation with race shifting everything, but only in one direction by Disney, obviously is quite strange. That is the least of the concerns, though.
Eventually, the performer tried to justify her viewpoint, though such statements only underscored the chasm separating her perspective from that of longtime admirers. Reconciling outright scorn for a fairy tale's essential components with a supposed desire to celebrate its legacy proved impossible. By the time lackluster reviews and dismal attendance figures rolled in, it was clear the production had missed its mark. Candace Owens' no-nonsense takedown became a focal point for debate. Some lauded her outspokenness, while others accused her of refusing to see the merits of updating a dated narrative. However, the unimpressive box office numbers provided the bluntest verdict of all.
Every deviation from the original story was done for a reason. I guess what's so tedious about this movie is that every single deviation was in favor of liberalism, and a radical kind of liberalism at that.
A reimagined classic that disrespects its own source material and targets potential viewers with derision will struggle to find support. In the end, industry professionals took note, recognizing that a lead actor who shows genuine esteem, or at least measured appreciation, for a classic is crucial when courting broad audiences.
A few lessons for Disney. Number one, stop cannibalizing all your old IP. Like, it's really bad. It's really bad business. Number two, please stop changing all of the historic plots, which actually have meaning to generations of people, to instead become generic woke story about how woman leads revolutionary uprising and she don't need no man.
Owens insisted the blame extended beyond the performer, pointing to a broader failure of leadership to preserve the story's indispensable warmth and appeal. Studios walked away from the experience, reminded that nostalgia wields significant power, and belittling it comes at a hefty cost. By the time the film's brief theatrical run wrapped up, the damage was undeniable. Analysts observed that a careful blend of reverence and measured innovation can triumph, but scorning a fairy tale's foundation seldom goes over well. Owens closed her commentary by highlighting that audiences are more than passive consumers. They take part in a cultural dialogue. If a star repeatedly indicates that the original fairy tale, and those who love it, are misguided, viewers will choose to stay home. Thus, the project became a somber reminder that reworking a childhood favorite does not have to mean tearing it down. Respecting its enduring essence is often the surest path to winning hearts in a new era.
Our rights are on the line, folks.
Bitch! The right to buy Cosby sweaters?
Come on.
That's the face of a serial killer.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button. I don't need your business.
Noted.
Thanks.